Hey, welcome to Coffee Code and Culture. My name is April. I am your host today. Josh Humphrey was going to join me, but he got called into some client work, which is a-okay because that is a top priority for us here at Worthwhile. But you have me today, and we are sticking with our work-life balance episodes. I wouldn't necessarily call it a series, but it's kind of unofficially a series. So Josh was going to join me today to talk a little bit about some health concerns that he ran into this year. And we were going to talk about work-life balance and importance of that stuff. So we'll save that for a different episode. And what I'm going to wing it today with is talking about preventative care because health is wealth. So let's stay in that same vein and talk about health is wealth. And if you've ever experienced any sort of issue with your health, whether that's major or minor, for some of us, even minor sickness feels like major sickness. That would be me. If anything is delayed, I start getting really agitated. I have brought 3 children into this world completely naturally and can do that. But if I'm sick for more than 3 days with a cold, I'm having major issues and my life is unraveling. And I've evaluated that before and I'm like, why is that? It's like, well, because I know when I'm been in labor and childbirth, it's relatively quickly, it's done. Like the pain is there and then it's over with. But anything that lingers can really get me spinning out of control. And the reason why I want to talk to you about preventative care today is because in my personal life and in my professional life, I have spoken to many adults who don't take advantage of their annual physicals, their blood work, other routine maintenance appointments. They just don't do it because there's not a major issue. And some have shared with me before because it's fear of finding out something bad. And some have shared with me before that it's the time, they don't have the time for it. Unless it's a major issue and they're having major concerns, then it's like urgent and you're trying to get in somewhere and get some sort of appointment and some sort of answers. But it's brought me to a place of wanting to talk about it here on the podcast because I know that this is something that people put off until it's a major issue. So let's talk about preventative care. Let's talk about why it's important. And my hope is to plant a seed with you that either now or in the new year, you would go ahead and make those appointments for yourself and then show up to them. If you've ever struggled with your health, if you've ever had a sickness that lasts for more than just a couple of days, and even just a couple of days, it can really knock you down with like a sinus cold. It impacts your quality of life so negatively. And if you think about that becoming a chronic issue and you've been putting it off because of your work, you're going to have to stop the work eventually to go deal with your health. I'll tell you a story about my dad. My dad passed away at 54 years old from colon cancer because he did not go to his routine appointments. By the time my dad decided to go to a doctor because he realized something was really, really wrong with him, it was a 5-inch tumor. He had to have surgery. He had to get a colostomy because they were afraid that the cancer would come back. Once he was recovered from surgery, he went straight into chemotherapy. My dad was a mechanic, and regardless of how important his work was, it didn't matter at that point. He had to put his health first because it was the only option that he had. So I think oftentimes we're putting off these routine appointments because we feel like we don't have time for it, or we are fearing what the results of that appointment are going to be. And the harsh truth and reality is that if something goes wrong with your health, everything goes on timeout. My dad learned this the hard way. He was able to reconcile his regret pretty quickly, and he lived for 11 months after his official diagnosis. Throughout that whole journey, and even now, he's been gone for 3 years, it's hard not to reflect sometimes and think, if only he had gone to his routine appointments. So in the spirit of talking about health is wealth, I wanted to bring that here publicly on the podcast today because I know a lot of people, for a lot of people who have health insurance through a company, a lot of the times those deductibles will start over in January. And as we're starting to think ahead to our goals and our ambitions for the new year, what do they matter if you don't prioritize your health? I was recently talking to Ruben Henschel. He's our COO here. And I was having my own health concern, but I did my annual routine visit back in the summer around June-ish and did my normal panel of blood work and everything came back great, which is always a gift. And so a couple of weeks ago, I started having some issues and went to get some tests done. And I had this peace of mind knowing that just a few months ago, I had blood work done. So I know everything was looking good then. So if something was going on, at least it shouldn't be too far gone. And Ruben and I were talking about the advantage of going to doctor's appointments and routine health visits is that then you will know. And once you know, then you can start solving. Even in our work, Ruben and I were talking about this yesterday in our one-on-one. He was saying that a lot of times once we identify what the problem is, the solutions just come. And I am reminded of that as I'm talking to you today, because it makes me think about even in our health, if we actually know what we're dealing with, then we can start the solutions, as opposed to being completely reactive and unsure, uncertain, feeling completely out of control. So it's really this flip in the brain. You have to switch something in the brain from, I don't want to know because I want to stick my head in the sand, to I'm going to go so that if something is going on, we can get in front of it. And if your excuse is because you don't have time, I want to invite you to explore that thought. I have a 10-year-old son. His name is Sway, and Sway loves video games. And when Sway is enthralled in these video games, he will forget to eat. He will forget to drink. He will forget to take breaks. And it's kind of out of sight, out of mind on the weekend. So we don't always see him upstairs playing that video game. We have to like consciously remember, like get him down for lunch. And once we get him off the game, he will be like, I'm so hungry. I have to use the bathroom. And we realize that he has sacrificed himself for the thing that was in front of him. So one of the things I've been talking to my 10-year-old son about is you got to put yourself first. You got to be able to know what you need and go take care of what you need. And then you can come back to the thing that you want to do. And I remember working in environments where I felt afraid to go to the doctor. And it wasn't because I was afraid for finding out things for my health. It was because I didn't want to upset anybody at work. And oftentimes I feel like we're somewhat conditioned to show that we're such a good sport and such a good employee by sacrificing ourselves for the work. So let's simplify this. Let's talk about the importance of routine physicals, medical visits, dental visits, eye visits, whatever it is that has to holistically do with your health. What appointments have you been putting off and why? And if you want to take it a step further and you feel a little convicted by my preaching of preventative appointments, pause me right now and make that phone call. Set that appointment and show up to it, because you're worth it. And all the things that you're putting before your health don't matter if you're not well, if you can't show up, if you're not here. All right. So got a little deeper there today, but this is what happens when I get left solo. My podcast co-host drops out on me. So Josh, this is all on you. You can thank Josh for this episode. Take care of you for real. We need you. And we'll see you on the next one.